Hello YouTube, my name is Paul Kroon, and it's been a while since I made my last video. But recently I get working with the component framework, and previous I made some videos about layers in components, and basically an idea about besides that was to have to manage just one control for my headers and footers, and basically the component framework will do so. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive in the component framework because there are some odd things I noticed when I was working with this. It took me some time to really understand those, and I thought let's share that with you guys looking at this video. In this video, we're going to look at the input and output properties we can give to the component framework and show you some things in that what you can do there. We're going to talk about containers because I like to enable the container. It's still in preview, but it's as long there that I think it's going to be in production sometime in the future. But they are very nice because they are basically a wrapper around your controls, a wrapper which can have a condition on the visual property, or and just shift your control basically in vision or not. Then we're gonna do a lot with relative positioning and sizing, because basically you want to have the biggest part of the application and then drill down to the components and keep them nicely together. Also, we're gonna discuss the new self formula we have in PowerApps, and self is basically a reference to the control itself. So, and this is very neat that it's here finally, because let's say you have 10 controls and you want to change the fill color of those 10 controls. Then you can pick them all, just change the fill color, and all the disable color, the focus color, you can just connect to the self dot fill property, and basically that's it. And you used to have to go to every control to change the disabled color if you want to change the formula there. So that's an improvement. Also, we're talking about dynamic rendering, or basically makes things appear dynamic on the screen. So let's go to an example what we're going to build today. So let's make my face a little bit smaller and put it somewhere where it's not in the way for the rest of the video, because we're gonna make this, and basically we're gonna make a mobile application. And I did a lot of front end development lately, and what we like to do is like a sliding menu, and we're gonna have the sliding menu on the header and on one of the options of the footer, and we're gonna build that. And basically you see here the base container with a little padding there. So we have a header padding which we can adjust in the app and also in the component. We have a footer with some options, and basically two slide in menus, which we're going to build. So 4 containers on a component which we can use on every screen. Now the components isn't really good yet. They have to improve a little bit, I think, Microsoft, because basically when we have like a desktop menu and we have a large menu and we want to set it to small, we can do that in the component. Or I tried a lot of things, but I didn't get it to work. And basically that's because we don't have an on-changed event on the component. And let's go to another screen, because I have some IDs set in the PowerApps forum, the ID forum, to do some additional improvements to the PowerApp, and maybe you can vote them. So I will post the URLs in the comments here, so you can go there and give kudos for that. So maybe they can achieve. And there are basically 3 things. The first thing is on the component itself. It's the on-change event. And how I look at it is that the on-change event is triggered with all the output properties on change, and then we can just use if statement. So if the component change is or one property, we can do something, and when it's another property, we can do something else. And for example, setting a variable with a set statement. So we have a variable we can get from one screen to another, which basically happens here. So when it's small, it's a global variable I put to true or false. And when I go to another screen, it's global, so it's available everywhere. I can do it on the component, so basically I put on an icon on top of it to get that done in this case, because I can't get it to work based on the output parameters. So a change event would help. Another thing is rendering conditional. So basically what I mean when I make this component we're going to build in the coming hour, then I put in containers and I do something with the containers, but basically they're always loaded on the screen because we are able to set the visual property or the place they are, but they are loaded on the screen. So when I have a little bit more experience with web development and I know how to use inspect and from developer tools, then basically I can find everything on the page. I can adjust the inline styling PowerApps uses, and basically from a loading perspective, but also from a security perspective, it's not what I want. I just want a condition basically on a container or a condition saying, okay, when this is false, you don't have to render anything, so it shouldn't appear on the page. So when I have a user with a specific role and I only want to load something based on the role, then it should be there on the page and not invisible on the page, but still there and being used without how I want it by the user. So give kudos to that. Then the last one before I start, also I'm gonna build one component with the header, the footer, and all the slide-in menus in just one component. So of course we could divide it in 2 or 3 different components, but then I have more components needed on my screen. So I have one component doing it all. On top of that, a page content container or where I do the rest of the logic of my page. You can see what I mean later, but it would be easy when we could say, okay, the component is in the back, but now put it on the front when we have a condition met and give it another set index based on a condition. So that would be helpful. So we can adjust the place of the containers we use or the controls we use based on the index, which is already used by the PowerApps. So PowerApps just gives an index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the page. Only we can adjust it in PowerApps itself. So that would be helpful. But I will get back to those 3 questions when we go on building our stuff. And then probably it will get clear to you what I mean. And if you agree with me, give kudos. So, but now let's dive in. And I basically build a new component and with nothing in it. So we gotta start from scratch and just build it up. And you see it coming to life. And of course, there are some tricks in there, like how do I arrange the slide in to be really easy and also adaptable. So that will be nice. So, but let's dive in. Before I start, let's go to the settings and let's give it. Don't give it another icon. Doesn't really matter. But first, go to the advanced settings, because here in the experimental features, I want to put in the control, container control, and this is there for 2 years. It used to call them enhanced groups, but now they are container controls. So I can't imagine that they're gonna pull this out of PowerApps as an option, because it basically it's great. So why should they? So let's call this mdemo and save this. And in the past we have to reload it to use the controls, but in this case we don't have to do this. Let's rename this and just say, okay, this is my bar, for example. Give it an easy name, a short name, because we're going to use this a lot. So I talked about relative sizing. So what we're going to do first is take the control itself. It's basically is a container, I think, and set this to the app width and the height to the app height. And basically we now take the height of the like test screens we get with the component library. But normally this would come from the application we are building. So let's call this home for now. And let's insert our custom bar. And maybe rename it to menu bar 1. And you see it's connected totally to the width. And when we go to the width, we see the parameters we set are the defaults here. So that's how it works when we have the default properties, and also when we have custom properties, they will show up with the defaults we give them as options in the MV in the component here. So we get those properties also. I don't know if they show up here in the advanced, but let's see that in when we go on. So now we have the app, the component set to the app width, and let's put in a container. And this container we're gonna call header. It starts at 0. 0, the width is again relative to the parent. And the height, let's put it to 80. But we want to make this dynamic later on. So this is gonna be a dynamic height. And this is gonna be our header. And in our header, we're gonna have a image. And let's first go to the height, because the height is the same as the parent. And then the width. We want to basically set the same as the height. Now, we could take the parent height for the width, but now we have the self formula, or the self property, I don't know how you call this, or attribute, self attribute, that's a nice name. And we can basically just say, okay, we reference the component itself and pick the height of those. So now we have a logo residing in the left. And let's rename this to a logo. We ain't gonna do anything with it yet, but we're gonna do in just 1 minute. So let's add in a label. Rename this to H label. The X, the text is, we're gonna do this in a minute. And the X parameter is a logo width. The height, Y parameter is 0. The height is basically the same as the parent height. And the width gonna be a little bit smaller. But first, let's put in a icon, and hamburger icon, hamburger. Rename its icon. It's gonna be 0. The Y is gonna be 0 for now. The height is the parent height. The width is again the self width, and you see the all relative to itself, all the reference to itself. We do the same for the padding. So we do self height times, let's go for 1.2. And of course we can take a percentage here. Let's do that 20%. And then for the other paddings, we're gonna again go to the self attribute. Because then we only have to change one parameter if you want to change this, and the rest will go along. So now the X, we want to set it to the parent width minus, again, the reference to itself width. So it's nicely on the side. Now we have to rearrange the width of the so it's the parent width minus 8 logo dot width minus 8 icon dot width. So it's nicely in between. It should be in the middle, and in the middle, centered in the middle for this. So basically these are the header components we like to use. So now we need to have attributes, dynamic attributes for those. So we're going to go to the custom properties here. And first we're going to start with some global variables. And I always start with global, then the space, pipe symbol space, and then in this case a global font. And you see for the name, all the pipe symbols and all the spaces are just dragged out, and the names I give them are combined, giving a nice name. So this is the input, and you see here when we look at the properties, there are no icons or no font properties, but we can just use the text here. And then for this property we can select this, take this away, and just have the font, because this is a global enum in PowerApps, and then just pick our CQ UI, for example, as a global font. Then I want to have a global fill, and basically this is the default fill for all my bars, and this fill is set to black, so in this case I will keep that. It's okay. Global color, it's also a color. The color default is black, but let's set it to a white. So we have black and white, so that's very nice. Global, a global logo, for example, a logo which we use everywhere, to the image. And then I'm gonna set another property, and this you won't understand now probably, but later maybe you will. Page content padding. This is a number, and let's set it to 5. And this is the white space between the header and my page content container, where I put the rest of all the things in my application. So let's see if I have everything. I have the color, the logo, the fill, and the font. Do I need more? I don't think so. So let's go to the sample. And I saw some other videos where people have put in media here, but in that case, this media is not available for the application when you put it on a not public environment. And earlier I did a video on binary images, or image binary. I don't know how we call it. Let's see how this is called. Data URI. So a data URI, and you can put an image into a text representation of this image. So basically it's text, and here I have my logo, and let's put it in here. And then this is going to be an image when we put it on an image container, but it's also available on the application because it's not hosted somewhere. It's just text which can be rendered by the image control because it's the image to a text. And sometimes when I have default images, I just do this. I don't put an image in because this will load faster, and it makes your applications faster than really having high resolution images, which has to be loaded in when the page loads. So we have the page content. So now let's look at the headers. I think I forget one thing, but we will see later. Oh yeah, I know. And that's the slide speed. And this is a number also. And basically this is the speed where our side menu or the more menu on the side will slide in. So we can adjust the slide speed if we want it a little bit faster or a little bit slower. And I found 50. It's a nice speed to have. So I put that on 50. Now let's go to the headers. So I have my header, and again pipe symbol because it's going to be deleted, and then the fill property. This is a color. And what I could do is the header fill property. I can also say, and let's do that in this case, that all the bars have the same fill property and use the global property. But sure, we can set this fill property and then basically connect it to our bar global fill, and give the header fill and the footer a fill and the side menus a fill. And in the other thing I showed you, I did it also because I want to be able to give the sliding menus different colors if I like to. But let's in this case just take the global fill for all the controls, because you don't want me to see creating properties all the time. And let's do the same then for the global fill, global size. This is a number, and to 20. So this is the size of the font for the header and also for the side menu list I'm gonna make. And then I do for the footer size, I do another size. And then I really make the footer size separate with another number. But now we have the global size, no problem. So then we have the header icon left. And basically I think this is, and for the icon also we can use a text property. And when we have the icon, we have icon. And also this is an enum in the environment of PowerApps with a lot of values. So here we can pick the hamburger if we like to. And basically I think for now, okay, let's do one more thing. Because on my logo, I want to have the possibility to navigate to a screen where I tell something about the company, or I give the solution to the customer to have an input of IDs or errors or whatever, which is not basically the app itself, but more the management and showing them how which people make the app. So this is going to be a screen, and when you look at it, it's the the app active screen. So in the app itself, or in our screen examples, we can just have a screen, an about me page, for example, and put this parameter to that page, and then we navigate to that page. But I'm going to show you later. So now let's go to the header, and okay, with the header height, I forgot that one. So we want to add a header type symbol height here, and this is a number also, and let's make this a number of 80. Now we can connect all those properties to the things I have in my header. So first, let's go to the height. And we connect the height to a dynamic parameter we can change in the application. And that's nice of the input parameters. And know about the component that as well the output parameters, which you can change and then change the value at the side of the app. You can also use the input parameters somewhere else in your app. It's just a property which you can relate to when you come from another component. So if you want to have the global fill also apply to a page content container, you can just relate to your components and to the global fill. So it's not only that you can have the output parameters used in your app, you can also connect to the input parameters. So you know. So we have the header height, and then we go to the fill, and this was the global fill, so that's a nice black. For the rest, we don't do nothing on this moment. Let's go to the icon and say this is the B header icon. We just make header icon, and I think the color we want to have the global color here. And let's the focus to 0. We can of course do something with this, but at this moment we won't do that. Then we go to the logo, and here again we can have the global logo, and you see we have a logo. So the text we put in, the data URI, is basically just an image when the image control converts this to an image. So when we go to a screen, it's there, and it's not coming from a secure place, so we can use it in the application. So we want to edit this. For the rest, this looks okay. The only thing we want to do is on select. We want to go to header logo, navigate. So to the screen with more information about the company and some extra additional options. So now we come to the label. Here we have to change the most. So we have B global fonts. Oh, and of course this should be the global font with the header title. And I see we didn't make a header title, so let's add a header title. It's going to be text. And this header title is going to use the collection function active screen dot name and title. And in this case, the title will only appear in our design view, because else there always going to be an active screen name default provided with the application. So because it's basically put on a screen. Let's go to the label again, and here we're gonna have the header title, and of course we don't see it because of the color, but that will be okay in just a second. So the font is CQUI, so we can change the font from the app. So when we have a theme with a specific font, we can just put it to our component, and then it's gonna be changed on all the text parts we like to add. Size, and you know, and I use the global size. Normally I would add a header size connected to the global size by default, and then use the header size here. Font weight should be semi-bold. We have a color, which is the global color, which is white, and we want to disable this, so we get another color. And then for the disable color, we just say self color, reference to itself again, without having to bother about the name of the control. Just say self and the color, and it works. Very nice, very, very good that this is there after 2 years waiting. So very enthusiasm about it. So now basically we have our header available, except from the on select on my icons, and also not showing the icons when there are not items I want to show in the side menu. So let's go to the next part, which is basically adding the side menu and arranging that it's going to slide in and slide out. So again, we're going to pick a container. Now the container is 0 and 0. It's based on the parent width and the parent height. And let's rename this to the side menu, just an S for side menu, and the more menu will be an M, and the footer will be an F. So keep it simple. We have a color, and let's first make our properties. So here we would want to add a logo, I think, but we're going to use the global logo. Normal, I would do the side menu logo, so you can have two different logos if you like to. We want to have a icon here, so let's add a side icon, and this is going to be a text property again, and the icon will be the icon hamburger. Oh, hamburger also, or no, because this is to close it, so let's pick the cancel in this case. And what we want, it should be a menu, so let's have the side menu items property, and this is going to be a table. And when you add this, you're going to have a sample table. So basically it can be a table, or you can use a collection here. So what we do in the app side is on start, we're going to clear collect a menu collection, and maybe on visible, we're going to make a separate collection for that specific page, put it in a collection, and then put the collection into this variable, and it's going to render. And very flexible. So I already make a table for this menu, and this is the side menu. So we have a title here, we have a target if you want to go to the screen, or a URL if you want to go outside of the app to another app, opening another app, or going to Google Maps, for example, or going to a browser and opening a web page. And basically for the Google Maps, maybe this should change a little bit, but I think from a menu, you normally don't want to go to Maps. So basically this is okay, I think. So let's put this in. So we have a menu, and let's change this control. So first go to the color. We take the global color, and of course normally we would have a side fill here, but so it's going to be black. We're going to put in an image we're going to put on the top. It's going to be a width of the parent width, and the height, it's going to be, what's going to be the height? Maybe 100 here. And then the image, it's going to be our global logo again. So let's put the X on 20. Oh, and of course not the X. The X can be on 0, but the Y can be on 20, so it's a little bit down. So we have a nice screen with a nice logo on top, with a cancel button in the bottom. We're going to make that now. So let's put in an icon, and maybe we just take the icon from here, put it there. Say the X should be 0, the Y should be the parent height minus self height, so it's in the bottom. The width could be the parent width, and the height, let's make this 70 of size. And you see again, this is just 20% of the 70. Make it a little bit smaller, a little bit nicer. And then the icon should be the side icon. And there's the X. Then let's rename this to sides icon, and rename this to S logo, and then put in a gallery, a blank vertical gallery. Let's first go to the Y parameter, and this is going to be the parent height minus the height of the gallery itself minus the S icon height. So it's on top of the X, but only the height of the gallery itself. And that's going to be dynamic. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just one moment. So this is going to be 0. Then the template size, let's say 100 is fine for our components. And let's pick a title. Then the separator we delete. The next arrow we delete. And then we have the title, which is basically this item. Okay, we don't have the side menu selected yet, so let's do that. Side menu items, so we can give the title a text of the title. Then the font to be global or fonts. The size be global size. It should be in the middle. The X should be on 0. The Y should be 0. The width should be the same as the template, and the height should be the parent template height. So it's basically 100. Then the vertical line should be in the middle. Then we should have a few things extra because we don't have the color yet, and this is the global color. And again, that normally I would have a side color connected to the global color, or give it a default color I want to have. So now you see the menu appearing, but still we are not done yet because we have not a height which is dynamic. So let's first set the width to the parent width, so it's basically always the same as the application. And that's because the component is based on the application, so that's the parent of those containers, which are the same as the application. And then this is based on the container, which is of course also the same as the application. So you get the ID. So what we're going to do here is count rows. And here again, we can connect to the gallery itself. And the gallery has the property all items. So we have the number of all items, which is 3. And this we're gonna multiply by the reference to itself again, and then the template height. The template height was 100, so it's gonna be 300. Count, so for items. And the template size, I didn't put it to 100. Very good, I think. I don't know. Template size, and this is the height. Why doesn't it work? Free. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't adjust automatically. You just have to take one letter away, put it in again, and then it works. So you see now we have 3 items. It's going to be 300 height. If you have more items, it's going to be higher or taller. But always when we have the mobile in our hand, with one hand we can just click the menus. So that will work. We don't need the scroll bars here. And okay, I think this is okay like this. Maybe later on we want to do something with a press fill, press color, or whatever. But we see that if we try the application. So this is the label. So now we have a side menu available, and now we want to be able to slide it in and slide it out. So let's first set this to the side. We can do that by the parent width. And then what we want is that it's going to slide in to 0, and it's going to slide out till the side again. So it's not visible anymore. And we can do that by some simple formulas and having a toggle which is going to toggle till it's sliding. So let's first go to the icon and go to the on select property, and here we're going to set a property like side show, and it's going to be true. So this we want to set to true, really true always. So when we click this, it's going to be true, and then we need a variable to slide our screen in, and let's say side slide. Let's call it that. And this is going to trigger a toggle. So let's put in a toggle. Let's copy this and paste it to the screen. Let's drag it a little bit down. Rename this, and this is our S toggle. We don't need the labels. So first we want to toggle this bar, so we set the default value to our side slide, and if we then click, it's gonna go to true and false, so it toggles. Now as soon as it toggles, the on change event is gonna be triggered. So here we want to have a formula, and in this case we want to have an if formula. And let's set it to true first, because here we need a condition. And here we want to set the side minus, let's call it like this, to side minus the global slide speed. This is going to be a plus, I think. Well, let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see. And then after that, we go on to set the side slide to side slide, which will change the variable on my default of the toggle, and it's going to toggle again. So now let's say here for side show should be true, but that's not the only thing we want to happen. We also want the side minus to be less than the app width, because we know the X parameter of the side menu is the same as the app width. So when the side menu is the same or smaller than the width of the app, then it can stop. But then when we have the side minus here, it can also be bigger than the side menu, and we don't want it to be bigger, because then our side menu will skip the page and we get a white bar on the right. So how we're going to do that is we use the min function, and we say the app width or variable, and then of course we shouldn't put it here. We should put it in our set statement. So this will say if the side minus plus the global speed is bigger than the app width, it's going to take the app width, and else it's going to take the lower one, which is a little bit bigger every time we run this control. So this is to go in, and of course we also want to go out. because we want one control handling this all. But then it's not the app width, but basically it should be bigger than 0, because when this is 0, then we're going to have the app width again on the X parameter, and it's going to be outside of our screen, not visible for the user. So instead of min, we want to have max, because it can go under 0. It can be a negative number when we say the side minus the global slide speed. It can be under 0. And then it should have a bar on the left still, I think, when we go back. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit black in our page, and we don't really want that, I think. So that's why we use the max. Now, we have the side minus, and then the last thing we have to do is to go to the S parameter and then take the parent width minus the side minus, and maybe we should do app width. It doesn't really matter, but with the app width, basically we used it in the formula. It's always going to work. Then let's take this formula, because when it's visible, we also want to be able to make it disappear again with the cancel button, or with the clicking this one. So this should be false, and then trigger the same control again. So when we trigger it now, it's going to go in. And I think I did something wrong here. Yeah, of course, it should be false, this, instead of true, and then it's going to go back. Going to appear, going to go back, going to appear, and will return. Let's make this a 30 height and a width of 80, so a little bit smaller. And then say for the X, I want to have the app height. No, the X can be 0. Of course, I need to have the width of the Y app height plus 10. So it's under our screen, not visible, and have a little bit space. So in our page, it's going to be together with another few controls which are not visible but will be rendered by PowerApps. So basically fine to have it there. Now we have the gallery, and we need to go to the onSelect statement. And here we want to have an if statement. If is blank this item URL, then we're going to navigate to our target. But else we want to launch this item.url. So when the URL is blank, we have a navigation, and we're going to go there, and else we're going to launch outside of the app a browser, for example. So, and basically our side menu is done now. Let's take this and bring it to the back. And then let's go on with our footer. And okay, let's input another container. 0, 0, the width is the same as the parent width. The height is the same as the parent height minus itself height. Oh, this is of course not right. Let's put this to 80 for now. And of course this should go on the Y, so it's in the bottom. And here we're going to have a footer height here. So let's go to our components and say we want to have a footer. Normally we would have a fill, a color, a size, and whatever we want. But in this case, let's only put in a footer height, which is a number, and say this height should be, let's say, 80, for example. Doesn't really matter. And we want to have a footer menu items. It's basically a table. Then we get our simple table again, but I have another table. And in this table we have a title, we have an icon we're going to use, we have a target, and we have a, how do you say that, a yes, no, a boolean, which basically when it's more, it's going to trigger something else than when it's false. So only the last is more, and we're going to use that for the more menu to make that. So let's put this in. Then rename this to footer, and this should be here. And in there we want to have a horizontal bar, and the title we get rid of, the image we get rid of, and we add in a icon, and then the gallery we're gonna say be footer menu items are gonna be the items we're gonna use. Then we're gonna go to the icon for first and say this item dot icon, and for the subtitle we will have the title. So for the font we're gonna have the global font again. Font for the size, and in this case we want to have a footer size here. So the number, because I want the size of the footer label a lot smaller, like 9, I think. So let's go back to our subtitle. Footer size, font weight is normal, it should be in the middle, it should be displayed, we have a height. I think the height should be based on the parent. Height times 30%. The Y should be the parent height minus the self height, so it's on the bottom. The X should be 0, and the width should be the same as the parent's template width. This is working. I think this is. The text should be centered in the middle. And I think this is okay. So let's call this F label. Let's rename this to F icon, and the icon should be on the top. The height should be the parent height times 70%, and you see 70 and 30 together is 100%, but probably you already saw that. And the width should be the parent width. And maybe a pinning top we want to do parent self dot height times 20%. And you see again I relate it to itself. So when I want to change this, I only have to change the padding top and it's gonna work. Now you see it's totally off on this moment, but it's gonna be fine in just a minute. And let's first go here to say this be footer height and the color be global color or fill, global fill. So it's nice black. We have the header here. The template size should be self height, should be the same as the height. Height should be the same as the parent's height. The width should be the same as the parent's width. And it should be scroll bar no. And yeah, this is all right. Now the width we set to the total width, and of course we shouldn't do that. We should set the width to the template width. Now let's change the color here to be global color, and also the label. And the self is nice because then we can pick more than one control as we do now and set them all to the same global color. And we don't have to pick all the controls one by one, because we can use self when the formula should be referencing itself and should be the same all the time. So now you see the padding size is off because we didn't do this right, because here again we want to have count rows, reference to itself, all items, and basically we want to have self width divided by the count rows. So if we have 5, it's going to be divided by 5. If we have 3, it's going to be divided by 3. 2, it's going to be divided by 2. So it's very flexible and very dynamic as a whole. So I think basically this is done. And then we only have to do the onSelect property. And here again, we want to have a formula, this item more. So if this is true, we want to have a set more show to true. And a more slide, which is again a trigger for another Google bar to the opposite of the more slides. And when this is not the case, we want to navigate to our this item target. So now when the more is true, we're gonna have the slide menu, and when the more is false, it's gonna navigate to the screen in our gallery in this case. So let's pick this toggle bar, copy this and paste this, reorder this send it to the back, and rename this to more toggle. And let's take this formula, bring it to, and I already did this, but let's do it again by Control F, and we want to pick sides and change it by more, or 13, and everything is changed. So this we can put on our slides. Then we have to change the default, because the default should trigger this component. And let's do the X100. So now we have to have a more menu. So let's copy this, paste this, and bring it backwards one, because it's connected to the footer. Let's call this more. Width, height is the same. Okay, the X is the same. This should be more minus instead of the other one. Is the global fill. Normally that would be the more fill. The icon, we want to have a more icon, and this is gonna have an error, but we're gonna fix that in one moment. More icon, more logo. This is set to the global logo, so this will be okay. And rename more ago. And then on the gallery data source, you want to have the more menu items, which is not there on this moment. But let's go here. Say menu items. Have a table. And let's for now just pick the side menu items table, because the structure is the same. Put it here. So this is gonna go away. Then we need a more icon. And there's gonna be text and a more icon. This is an icon. Cancel. So now we have to go to the icon, because here on select we have still a side show, but it should be more show and more slide, of course. And I think this should work. Slide in, slide out, slide in, slide out. So if we go to our screen now, we can have the slide in, slide out, slide in, slide out. And of course, if we set this more from the last option to false, we're gonna go to a screen and nobody ever sees the more slide in menu. So basically, then it's not there. We can do the same for this component, the icon, and we keep it here, but we can set the visible property to the count rows, and then we can do two things, but just say the side menu items dot all. Side menu items is bigger than 0. So normally when it's not bigger than 0, normally it wouldn't show up anymore. So then when it's not showing up, people can't use it. Of course they can when they know how to use developer tools and expect. But again, that's the conditional rendering, a question I had in the PowerApps forum. So give that kudos if you think, okay, we don't like this. But still, there ain't gonna be menu items here. So what's the harm? You could think. Okay, so basically we have the controls and the output controls all available and already. So now we need some output parameters. So out, let's call it like this. And let's say base container y. It's going to be an output. It's going to be a number. And when we set this number, we're going to have b header height plus b global content padding. And let's rename this to page content y to have some consistency in naming. So let's put in another output. This is going to be a number also. And let's say out page content height. And the height of the page content is the tab height. We can use the parent here because it's a property minus the b header height plus, and let's do it like this. So we first calculate the inside and then divide everything or minus everything from there. Page content padding, and we can do this times 2 because we need it 2 times, and then we can have the footer heights. So basically we have 80, 80, and 10 is from the page height. And it's gonna be totally here. And as the last output property on this moment, so I think, but maybe there is another one, page content visible. And why do I do this boolean? Is because I can set the order of my component. So I can say that the index of the component should be on top of the page container. So basically I make the page container not visible to see the sliding menus, because else the page container would be in front of my sliding menus. So it would be better to have a set index or an ordering extra, but for now let's take this, and this works, so that's gonna be fine. So let's create this, and then the visibility, it's gonna be an end formula, and when the more show isn't visible and the slideshow is not visible, so that's why slideshow, sorry. So when this is not true and this is not true, so false, and both are false, then the container is visible, and else this is a false. So when we do this, we go back to this, it's going to be false, you see. So, and now basically we are ready. So let's go to our screens and say for this screen we want to add a container. In the container, x is just 0, the y is and that's why I call it out, because then all the out is nicely organized together. So the y parameter is based on the out page content y. The width is of course just the parent width, which is just the screen width, and the height is one dot out content height. And then the visibility is based on MD out content visibility. And let's rename this to base container 1 so we can copy this part and go on. So let's do a minor change so we can really see this working with the footer items. So the target screen should be home, active screen. Let's call this projects. And you see it is gonna have a error, but we're gonna fix that in just one moment, no problem. So let's duplicate this screen, rename them to projects, and duplicate again and rename to invoices. So now our errors will be okay, and we have an application of 3 parts. So let's make this light blue so we can see what's happening. Let's make this a yellow and this a light green color. So if we now run the app, we can go to home. There's something going wrong here. I don't know what's. Okay, this is maybe not changed. So this should be home. I don't know why this happens, but okay, no problem. Maybe because he has an error and the first screen we changed was the invoices screen. But again, that was not the case, but whatever. That's changed because the rest is working well as it is. So now we can go to projects, to invoices, have our screen in there, have our screen out, go to projects, and have our sliding screens. I think there's something going wrong here. Oh, no. So, and what happens is here the page content container where I'm gonna put the rest of my application in, or my screen controls, it's basically not visible, and rather I would have this whole component go to the front with a transparent background, so the slider is totally over the container and you don't you make them visible, so it's really going over the app and back. So I think this concludes the whole application we built. So we built a header, a footer, a side menu, and a menu, which we can basically add in an application and then just use by having a let's do that. Just normally it should be on the app load, of course, or when you want to change the application later. Let's pick this one. Go to the invisible property. Let's say menu. Let's go there. Let's go back. Probably we got our menu now, and we can put that menu here. Put the menu here, and put the menu here. So when we now go here and we say You want to have this app an extra option. For example, declarations. We've got a declaration screen, which of course will break my application. But as soon as I have this going to work again. And now you see we have more screens to go to. Okay, this concludes my video about components and a deep dive. So I hope you learned something about it and I told you something which is useful in your daily life. And thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.